Hi, fourth grade. It's Thursday. Thursday is mismatch day. So it's hard to do mismatch on a video. And I really didn't want to show everyone my feet. So what I did, I am wearing mismatched socks, but we're not going to go there with the feet. I did do my hair. I've got one in a ponytail and one in a braid. So that's going to show my mismatched spirit for today. We are going to now do science again. So we've been talking about plants and animals, organisms, how they live in the environment, how they help the environment. And now we are going to be reading How Do Plants and Animals Reproduce and Adapt?
Yes, sir. Okay, bye.
So I want you to get your Thursday packet out and find this booklet. As always, with science, we want to be active readers. We want to be active readers with everything. But with science, it helps us be active readers when we read these booklets. It has words that we're going to learn in the story and questions that it's going to answer. And the answers to the questions are going to be underlined. This is going to help us be active readers. So let's go ahead and start on page 3 with the header, How Do Plants Reproduce? We've been talking a little bit about this, so we may already know some of this information, but that's okay. It's always good to review the information. And if we don't know it yet, we're getting into it now. So, how do plants reproduce? Follow along with me. Plants grow all over Earth. Cactus plants grow in deserts. Palm trees and orchards grow in rainforests. Mosses grow in swamps. You can find plants growing in cities. Do you wonder how plants reproduce? Most seed plants reproduce through sexual reproduction. Sperm are the male sex eggs. Eggs are the female sex eggs. Look at the flower diagram below. Pollen is found in the anther and contains sperm. Eggs are found in the pistil. Many flowers have anthers and a pistil. And looking at the diagram, it shows us the picture of the flower with the pistil and the anther. And the caption at the bottom says the flower holds the plant's sex cells. Looking at the next page. Fertilization is the joining of an egg and a sperm. When an egg is fertilized, it grows into an embryo. The embryo forms inside a seed. The embryo is the first stage of a plant's life. In most seed plants, the seeds form in flowers. For example, apple tree seeds form in the tree's flowers. Other seed plants have cones instead of flowers. For example, seeds of pine trees form in cones, just like we learned that the seeds are inside the pine cones. Some plants don't make seeds. For example, mosses and ferns don't make seeds. Instead, these plants make spores. A spore is a structure that can produce new plants. The spores form inside a capsule. The capsule bursts open and releases the spores. And the caption up at the top says moss spores form inside capsules. The capsules grow at the end of stalks. And it has an arrow pointing to a spore capsule. Looking at page 5, it says the header, How do pollen, seeds, and spores travel? Pollination is the transfer of pollen from the anthers to the pistil of a seed plant. How does the pollen get to the pistil? Both wind and water can carry pollen. Animals can also carry pollen. The bee is one animal that carries pollen. A bee goes from flower to drink nectar. Along the way, the bee picks up pollen from anthers. It leaves behind pollen on the pistil. That's how flowers are pollinated. Like pollen, seeds travel by wind, water, and animals. Animals transport seeds when they eat fruits. The seeds leave the animals' bodies in their waste. Some seeds have thorns or hooks. These attach to an animal's fur and travel on its body. Like pollen and seeds, spores travel by wind. Many land in places with good light and water. These spores can then grow into new plants. And looking at the pictures below, the caption says, "Wind carries the pollen of grasses and trees." We are now looking at the next page, at the header that says, "What is the life cycle of a seed plant?" And remember, we've already touched a little bit on life cycles. Plants grow in stages. A seed plant goes through stages in its life. All the stages together make up a life cycle. A seed is planted in soil. Next, the seed grows into a tiny plant. The plant grows until it can make flowers or cones. These are the parts that make more seeds. Let's look at the radish life cycle. The radish seed holds the embryo of a radish plant. Germination is the stage when the seed sprouts. When the seed sprouts, the embryo in the seed grows into a tiny plant. The radish plant gets larger and grows more roots. Then it grows to its full size. It reaches maturity, the stage at which an organism can reproduce. Mature plants make seeds that grow into new plants. And looking at the bottom of the page is the life cycle of a radish plant. So it starts with a seed with an embryo inside of the seed. Then it becomes a sprout, then a growing plant, and then a fully mature plant. Looking at the next page, we get food from plants. You might grow a plant, such as a lima bean plant, in a garden. Here is how to do it. First, get a package of lima bean seeds. Next, plant the seeds in soil. Plant them where they'll get a lot of light. The seeds will grow into plants. The plants get bigger and make flowers. Then the bean pods form. The plants are now mature. Each pod holds seeds. We call the seeds beans. The seeds can be planted. They can grow into new lima bean plants. And the picture, the diagram at the bottom, shows us the life cycle of a lima bean plant. It starts with the seed, becomes a growing plant, mature plant with flowers, and then the mature plant has bean pods on it. We are now looking at how do animals reproduce. How do animals reproduce? Most animals reproduce sexually. A sperm from a male joins with an egg from a female. The fertilized egg grows into a new animal. The eggs of some animals are fertilized outside the female's body. This happens with frogs. The eggs of some other animals are fertilized inside the female's body. This happens with alligators. The female alligator builds a nest with leaves and grasses. Then she lays her eggs. She covers the eggs with more leaves and grass. She watches over the nest. And we talked a little bit about the life cycle of an alligator last week. Looking at the caption up at the top, it says the temperature of alligator eggs causes the young alligators to be male or female. So that's pretty interesting that the temperature of the eggs can determine if they're going to be male or female. Didn't know that before, now we do. Looking at page 9, the picture of the horse, we're going to read the paragraphs and then the caption. The eggs are in the nest for about 2 months. Then the young begin to squeak. That's the sign that they are ready to hatch. Once they hatch, the female carries the young to the water. She carries them in her mouth. When alligators are 10 years old, they can mate and produce young. Other animals don't lay eggs. The female gives birth to live young. She cares for the young and feeds them with milk. Lions, cows, and dogs are born this way. And then the caption says, female horses give birth to live babies. They care for the babies and feed them milk. Now we're talking about metamorphosis again. Looking at the page with the header, what is metamorphosis? Look back at the young alligator and the horse in the pictures. Do they look like the adult animals? I think they do. With some animals, the young look very different. These animals go through complete metamorphosis. In complete metamorphosis, animals go through 4 stages in their life cycle. Examples of these animals are butterflies and beetles. A butterfly egg hatches into a larva. The larva is a caterpillar. The caterpillar looks different from the butterfly. Next, the caterpillar becomes a pupa inside a chrysalis. Then the pupa becomes an adult butterfly. The butterfly splits open the chrysalis and flies out. And we talked about this cycle before with our butterflies. Looking at the picture, it gives us the cycle one more time. Egg, larva, pupa, and adult butterfly. And the caption says butterflies go through complete metamorphosis. So they may use different words, larva instead of caterpillar, pupa instead of chrysalis, but it's the same cycle and they're the same thing. Looking at the next page, now we're going to be talking about incomplete metamorphosis. Some insects go through a different life cycle called incomplete metamorphosis. A dragonfly is an example. And in our previous book, we read about the cockroach being a incomplete metamorphosis. Now it's giving us another example, the dragonfly. In incomplete metamorphosis, there are 3 stages of development. So complete metamorphosis is 4 stages. Incomplete metamorphosis is 3 stages. A dragonfly hatches from its egg. It is a nymph, an immature form. So a nymph means an immature form, just like we learned about the cockroach. That one was also called a nymph. It's an immature form. It's not fully formed. The nymph looks like an adult dragonfly, but it doesn't have wings. The nymph grows larger. It molts or sheds its outer covering. It molts several times, then it grows wings. It is at the adult stage. It looks and acts like an adult dragonfly. So it starts at an egg, then it becomes a nymph where it has the body similar to a dragonfly, but it doesn't have wings. And then as it grows, it molts and sheds that outer layer, gets bigger, a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger. And then it finally has wings, and it is an adult dragonfly. So looking at page 12, we are looking at the header, why must the living thing adapt to its environment? Deserts and rainforests are environments. An environment is all the living and non-living things that surround and affect an organism. Look at the picture below. It shows a wetland environment. The environment includes plants, animals, water, air, and land. All living things need air, water, and food. Animals need shelter too. A plant or animal gets the things it needs from its environment. And the caption says, birds and other animals live in wetlands. They find air, food, water, and a safe place to live. We are now on the next page with the picture of the cactus plants. Earth has many different environments. Deserts have little rainfall. Rainforests are hot and have a large amount of rainfall. The Arctic is very cold. Each living thing must be able to stay alive in its environment. An adaptation is a trait or characteristic that helps an organism survive. Adaptations help each organism stay alive in its environment. The Saguaro cactus is a plant with a large root system. The root system spreads far from the plant's trunk to help the cactus collect rainfall. The root system helps the cactus stay alive in the desert. It is an adaptation. And looking at the caption underneath the cactus plants, saguaro cactus plants have adaptations that help them live with little water. So that is how cactuses survive when it doesn't rain a whole lot in the desert, because the roots collect water and store them so that, and the plants only need just a little bit of water to survive. Looking at the bottom picture, it is a picture of a water lily. And the caption says, water lilies have adaptations to help them live in water. Looking at the next page, we are now looking at what are physical adaptations. A physical adaptation is an adaptation in a body part. A macaw is a parrot. It lives in the rainforest. A macaw has a large, powerful beak. Its beak helps the bird break open nuts and seeds. The macaw also has toes that help it grip tree branches. The toes can also hold objects. The macaw's beak and feet are physical adaptations. And I want you to think about that for a minute, because think about the beak that it's showing in the picture of the macaw, how big and thick and strong it looks compared to other birds that we might see around our own neighborhood that maybe have smaller, thinner beaks. So that's a physical adaptation. A mallard is a type of duck. It has physical adaptations that help it live in water. The mallard has a flat beak called a bill. The bill helps it catch food underwater. The mallard also has webbed feet. These feet help it move quickly on and under water. And the picture at the bottom shows us a mallard. And the caption says, beaks and bills are important body parts. They help birds find and eat food. At the top of the next page, polar bears live in the freezing Arctic. They have physical adaptations that help them survive there. Polar bears have long snouts that help them poke into holes in the ice. Then they pull out their favorite meal, a seal. Polar bears also have wide feet with claws. These feet help them walk on ice without slipping. Camels live in the desert. There, most plants are tough. The plants have sharp points on their stems. Camels have a physical adaptation that helps them eat the plants. They have sharp teeth. Camels also have wide feet. This adaptation helps them walk on sand without sinking. And the caption says, look at the picture of the desert. What else might a camel need to stay alive in this environment? Now we're looking at the next page. What are behavioral adaptations? What are behavioral adaptations? A behavioral adaptation is something an animal does that helps it survive. Have you seen emperor penguins on TV or in a movie? You probably saw how the males gather into a tight group. The males do this to stay warm. This is a behavioral adaptation. An instinct is a behavioral adaptation. An instinct is a behavior that does not have to be learned. Many Arctic animals dig dens in the snow. They live in the dens during the coldest time of year. Some desert animals dig dens in the sand. They spend the hottest part of the day in their den. The animals do these things by instinct. And looking at the caption, it says, sea turtles hatch on land. The baby turtles move toward light over the open ocean. This is an example of instinct. They were just born. They haven't been taught anything by their mother, but they automatically already know instinct. They already know how to head towards the ocean. That is their instinct. It doesn't need to be taught to them. Looking at the next page, bears have behavioral adaptations that help them in winter. At the end of the summer, bears start to eat a lot. Each day, they eat 5 times as much as they usually do. They do this until the end of fall. Eating all the food adds a layer of fat to their body. Then they look for a place to spend the winter. It might be a big hole in a tree. The bear spends the winter in this den. They don't come out to eat or drink. They live on their stored fat. Humpback whales live off the coast of Alaska. In fall, they leave this home. They swim to warm ocean waters near Hawaii. That's where they spend the winter. They also give birth to their young there. In the spring, they go back to the Alaskan coast. So you'll notice bears hibernate. That's what it was telling you. It hibernates in the winter, goes to sleep. Humpback whales migrate. They live in Alaska. They migrate south to the warm waters near Hawaii in the winter, and then in the spring they go back to Alaska. And the caption for the picture says, Arctic terns fly from the Arctic to Antarctica and back every year. This is a behavioral adaptation. Now we're looking at what is heredity. Heredity is the passing of traits from parents to their offspring. All living things pass traits on to their young. Plants pass traits on, such as flower color. Animals pass traits on too. This is why animal family members look like each other. For example, a young tiger gets its striped coat from its parents. Every living thing has genes. Genes are in sex cells. A male sex cell and a female sex cell join and form a new cell. The new cell has genes from both the female cell and the male cell. Genes are the chemical instructions that control traits. In animals that use sexual reproduction, half of a living thing's traits come from the mother, half come from the father. And looking at the caption for the picture, it says, most skunks have black and white fur. This is passed on from their parents. Next page. An environment can change the traits of living things. Here's one example. Tadpoles are frog larvae. They swim in ponds. A pond will dry up without rain. If this happens, the tadpoles quickly become adult frogs. They become adults faster than tadpoles living in a pond that does not dry out. Temperature can also change living things. You learned that temperature affects the eggs in an alligator nest. If it's 86 degrees Fahrenheit or less, the young will be female. If it's 93 degrees Fahrenheit or more, the young will be male. Between 86 degrees and 93 degrees Fahrenheit, there will be a mix of male and female alligators. And looking at the caption at the bottom, it says, light can change living things. These sunflowers grow toward the light. Now we're looking at the next page that says, what's the difference between instinct and learned behavior? And we've already talked about this a little bit, so we have a little bit of background knowledge already, but let's go ahead and read and see if we can learn something new. Animals can learn to act in certain ways. They can learn to do different things. Learning helps animals live. A learned behavior is something an animal learns to do. The animal might learn it by watching other animals. Instincts are behaviors that animals are born with. They are not learned. Instincts help animals live and stay safe. If a rattlesnake is trapped, it will likely rattle its tail. This is a warning to stay away. It is an instinct. Each fall, monarch butterflies fly south. They go from the United States to Mexico. They want to be where it is warm. In the spring, they fly back. No one teaches them to do this. It is an instinct. Many types of birds also know by instinct to fly to a warmer place for winter. And looking at the caption with the picture, an American white pelican catches fish with its large beak. This behavior is instinct. So remember, instinct is something that they don't have to be taught by their parents or by other animals. They already know it the minute they're born. Okay, learned behavior is something that they have to be taught. Like we go to school to learn. They learn by watching the animals, the parents around them. Looking at the next page. When geese hatch, the parent is the first living thing they see. Young geese follow their mother everywhere. This is instinct. They watch their parents. They learn how the parents get food. Animals can learn more difficult things. Young coyotes learn to hunt from older coyotes. They also learn how to be part of a pack. Young prairie dogs watch adult family members. They learn how to protect themselves. They learn to recognize a danger call. When they hear it, they find a safe place to hide. And if you look at the caption that goes with this picture, it says, the mother dolphin whistles to her young. The calf learns to recognize its mother. And that is the end of this lesson. It has a glossary at the back with all the terms that we've learned throughout this book and the definitions for them. Now, again, with this lesson, there are no questions. It's just a lesson that I want you to read through and learn because it touches a little bit on everything else that we've already covered. We may ask a question in our discussion from these lessons, but there's no questions that go with the booklet. Okay? I hope you guys are having a fabulous Thursday, and I will talk to you guys later. Okay? Bye.